All right, long time no see. Hey, so just dropped part one to generational knowledge, and part two is alive. So the crazy part is, we hear about these generational curses, and you know, this is the main process. A lot of us, we haven't learned the mistakes of our parents. A lot of us are falling worse than our parents. Not to go at the women for this, but a lot of these women are having lots and lots and lots of kids. Not saying that the men don't, but I'm gonna get on them in a minute. They're having these kids with these different guys, and they're not setting up a foundation where it's a family. You know, back in the day, you would have a man, he would take on the responsibility of being a stepfather. Because let's say in the later 18, like the late 1900s, uh going into the, well, let's say the early 1900s, 1800s, you had a situation where men, the whole thing was farming. So that's why you have a whole bunch of kids, and the kids help with the farms and stuff. So a lot of kids were there, and a man could just have a walking divorce and leave and go get another family and go from there. And then you would have the men, today's society, or just, a lot of kids. Hey, wonder what's going on. A lot of kids now. And, creditly, we kind of get on the women for having these kids. But, I mean, honestly, truthfully, there's a small group of men having kids. I mean, honestly. They did the statistics. I haven't looked at it recently, but I know they said it was over what was it, 65, I think, percent of men with no kids and not married. And if you look at the statistics, you will see on average guys that are not married, it's roughly around 15-20%, in my opinion. I'm just gonna say in my opinion, that are men that are having kids. Because honestly speaking, you gotta have money. You gotta have money to get a woman. You gotta have the look to get a woman. So a lot of times, shout out, what's going on? Yellow, what's going on? And it just, if you don't have the look, you're not getting a woman. What's going on? Make this go viral. What's going on? Shout out to you. Just us in the building. But if you don't have the look, you're not getting a woman. If you don't have the money, pretty much you're not getting one. So it's not a lot of men out here having kids like that. I was with a group of guys where I would sit there and talk to them, and we would go through our emotions, have our discussions. And at first I thought this was the group for me. It's all about men. But then I kind of, went down that rabbit hole and seen that it was a lot of pain and hurt from a lot of past relationships with some of these men, you know, and it gets deep, So the understanding of knowing the process of what people go through, it hurts them real bad. So on both ends, you got men and women having kids. What are we learning from our mistakes? Our parents wasn't when our parents had 3, 4 kids, and I'm gonna be open with this. My mom had a total of 4 kids. And out of the 4 kids my mom had, she had two different men. My dad had 3 of us, and my older brother's from a different relationship. That was before my mom settled down and got married. She had her first kid out of wedlock, turned around years later and got married. Um, and then me and my brothers, me and the younger boys, we were all from the same father. She was married, you know. My father took the responsibility of my older brother, and had three more kids. But the understanding that it goes like that nowadays, very unlikely. There are a lot of men that don't want kids to raise kids from another previous relationship. Yeah, JP, that is true. Um, Going into it, a lot of people aren't taught, proper grooming. Don't you know there's men that can't even take a bath right? Know how to take a bath using the same rag to wipe your butt to wipe your face. Do you know that women pH balance is off because they're not taught to use soap? You're not supposed to use soap down. They're naturally using water, and there's some products, but mainly to naturally clean yourself. I have like these younger women. I have met younger women who just like reek of onions because they don't wash up under their arms. This goes against the generational knowledge to where we're not passing this stuff down. Like my kids, I can't tell you how many times I just recently did a job for a lady last week, and she was saying that her toilet was clogged up and the sewer line just blowed out. She clean out was messed up, and she was complaining about her son, using too much tissue. When I caught a hold of my sons using tissue like that, plain and simple, I told them how to wrap their hand with the tissue. The tissue, as big as your hand is, that's how big you should roll your tissue out. At least 3 or 4 laps over. I don't mind. You can wipe 20 times to get it out, but you need to flush between like at least 3 to 4 wipes. Flush, you know, and the what's they called it, the courtesy flush. I don't know about women do this, but men we do this. You in the bathroom and you taking a big dump, courtesy flush, man, flush that thing. Nobody want to smell that stench all day in a public bathroom. That's we say it as a courtesy flush, stuff like that. The people in, I'm not. We're having this conversation right now. How many people are having a conversation with their kids about wiping their butt properly, unless they reek smells? How many people? I remember when I was young, and like I said, I'm being open about this. I don't know why I didn't like taking the baths. It was just something to where I guess I wanted to go back out and play or something. But as a kid, man, I go in there, I go play in the water and get the rag, play with it, play with toys, and get out, and I'm good. And I'm gone. Let's see. Oh, somebody was saying something they weren't supposed to. But, when it came down to it, I took a bath eventually because I started getting into girls. And plus, my grandparents and everybody who was raising me was telling me, you stink. Either I'm going to go in there and bathe you and properly and this and that. I knew how to take a bath. Then I was still young. I was like, what, kindergarten, probably first or second. I don't know when I really started taking it serious. I forgot, it's been years ago. But I know as a little kid, I didn't like taking baths. And I was school age. And it was to the point where my aunt, all of them would get on us, me and my younger brother, about taking a bath. Eventually, I was like, man, let me just go ahead and take a bath. It ain't that bad. Let me hurry up, get in and get out. But as boys, I just kids in general, you know, just taking baths. It was just something that was a chore as a kid until like I started taking it serious. I get on my boys about that. They take baths. These I've never seen like I've get on my kids about taking baths too long. They'll be in there singing, got the radio, like got their phone in there playing music. I'm like, when I was at their age, I wasn't really doing that. I was just in and out. Now these kids like taking hour, like they're going to a spa or something. But that's the thing. different generation. So the kids who are taught now, they should be elevating over the adults that have been raised back in the day. Far as finance, that's why I try to keep my content mostly with finance and mental health. Because there's a very bad issue that's going on within our society with our people, you know, not just black, white, Indian, Chinese, everybody's suffering from this. And we're not teaching our youth enough. You know, we hear about this thing called generational curse. You make the generational curse. Like what I always say when I say, I should be better than my father. I should do better than my father. I've told Alonzo, when me and Alonzo Hall, the all-star advisor, the social media brother, insurance brother. So when me and Alonzo have our conversations, I've always told Alonzo, my great grandma told me about life insurance when I was a little kid. And the reason why was because she always said, nobody should be a burden. You're grown. You need to get some life insurance, take care of yourself. If anything ever happens, what's going on, Gold P? I gotta hit you. Hey, see, I just came from doing the job. But if you have any issues, you don't need to be GoFundMe's like the new thing, but fish fries to bury you. You should be able to take care of yourself, even if it's a $5,000, which is nothing compared now. Um, the last two funerals I planned, I did for my family, my grandma and my uncle. My uncle's was 8,000, my grandma's was 6, and that was on the cheap side because I didn't have to pay for my grandma. The church took care of everything else. All I had to do was far as the body and the funeral home. That was it. The church took care of the arrangements for us to be there. The church took care of the food that we had to prepare for. The church took care of all that because my grandma's a member, been there for years. You know, uh, everything. My uncle, his was relatively because we did it at this funeral home, big funeral home down here in Atlanta. Willie Watkins, family known, big throughout doing funeral homes. My family, people in my family actually knew them. So there was conversation and we got it relatively at a good deal, far as, but that's the biggest thing with these funeral homes. They're not forcing you, but they're forcing you to pay as much as they can, to pay as much as you can. And so, like I said, with the knowledge, we're not giving our kids this information, you know. And I've been endowed in my work a lot, so I haven't been on YouTube as much. But just like I say, going into it, man, there's a lot of issue with people talking about generational wealth, talking about the next generation, leaving them money. I could leave both of my twins and my two older kids, which 4 kids, I can leave all of them $4 million. I can leave them $1 million each. Without them having the knowledge, they'll blow through that money. Roughly $1 million now. You probably go through it in about 8 months to a year. 8 months to a year. If you really want to blow through $1 million, you can spend $1 million in one day. You can spend $1 million in one day. You buy a house, buy a car. They had this guy, shout out to Alonzo. I did one of his luncheons. Alonzo had a guy who had about, I think, $4.3 million. And almost within a year and a half, this guy was broke. He was down to his last 300,000 or 200,000 within a year and a half. He had a state attorney, and she was going over the proceedings, talking with him about things about his parents leaving him the money. I don't know if the parent. I think the parents died both at the same time, and granted him the money. He bought a house in California, bought a Ferrari, went lavish trips overseas, do parties almost every weekend. And guess what? That money was $3.4 million or $4.3 million, one of the two. But either or, that's not a lot of money nowadays. I mean, you can blow through that money real quick. And it's like a lot of times, man, we don't have these conversations with our kids. Like now, my boys are on this toll to where they actually are paying for everything that they want. One of my sons right now owes me $210. I counted to a T. He owed me $100 for his dues for eighth grade. He owes me, what was it? I gave him $80 for something, and then I just gave him $30. So I think it was 40 or something for that other one. I know that $80 is a breakdown of some stuff. But then I actually gave him $30 when he went to my friend's house and they went to the movies and went out to eat. I'm not giving my boys, I told them that they're at the age right now, 14 years old. I'm not giving you nothing. You got to go get a job. I'm teaching this responsibility early now, and I'm breaking it out my other son because my wife is being so petty with him. She's like giving him money, feeling sorry for him, doing. I'm like, no, stop that. These young boys have to become men, so they have to learn this stuff now. This is the only resilient dad. What's going on, man? This the only way I can teach my young men to be successful. If I give them everything, they will be entitled. That's why I gave them all the spoils when they were younger. Now that they're older, I told them they're 14 years old. Next year at 15, they can get a job. Right now they can get a job, but it's harder because nowadays all the adults are taking the kids' jobs. I mean, not no shot at the adults because the adults very much need this job more than the kids. I'd rather have a grown man working a job than to have my young son working a job because I understand the responsibilities of being a man and providing for your family. You know, it's like shout out to Antonio Brown, the football player retired. He actually raised over $41,000 for the guy down here in Atlanta that left his three kids in a car to go do a job interview. Granted, we could say, where was his mother? Where was his father? Where was his cousin, auntie? Anybody could have watched those kids. But you know how many people don't want to? There's grandparents that don't want to be grandparents nowadays. Literally saying there's literally grandparents that don't want to be grandparents. You know, and then there are grandparents that go over being grandparents that they actually have the kids stand with them. You know, I have a family member that's like that. Their grandchild stays with them Monday through Friday, and on the weekend she go to her mom's house. Or every other time they'll come pick her up and drop her back off over there because she goes to school over there. And this is the great grandparent because the grandma and the mother stay together. So a lot of times you have these grandparents that don't want to be grandparents. Where are these kids going? You know, if you have your adult child staying with you, how much responsibility are they giving to the kids to show them a need to be financially stable? Because they're going to go to the club on the weekends. They're going to try to make grandma watch the kids. All this stuff is a turn of events to where if we don't start teaching our kids now, they're going to be relying on us for the rest of their lives. And I've told my wife, I've jokingly told her about it, but at the same time, I was like, the boys are not going to stay with us forever. They're going to stay with you forever, but not with me. And just letting her know that we have to be responsible about raising these young men. We have to be responsible. My two older kids, they're self-sustained. They actually stay together now. My son got out of college and moved back up to Georgia. Well, not Georgia, but up to Atlanta. He went to school in Georgia. My daughter went to school in Tampa, graduated there, and came back to Georgia. And so they're doing pretty good. You know, my son's looking at to the point of graduating and getting his own place. My daughter bought a house 2 years ago, so they're doing pretty good. So we did good with those kids. Why we're not going to do with the next generation, the younger kids? And my younger kids are hard headed. You have a slight balance within the next generations, but I think my younger kids with their alphas, if I'm not mistaken, I don't know, that's 14. Just know that they're 14 now. The crazy part is like these two boys, and for those that don't know, I have twins. And just teaching them the knowledge, man. Like I said, that generational knowledge to where, man, a lot of people sacrifice. You shouldn't have to sacrifice that much. I mean, shout out to my godson, man. It is crazy. So I was talking to my friend, and my godson had me crying laughing. So my friend, he was like, "Yeah, man, I'm trying to teach my son some discipline." Granted, his son is 19 years old. He stays with him, and he's like, "Yeah, man, I'm trying to teach my son some discipline." Awesome kid. I mean, he should have been born as a millennial, man. He's funny. So he was like, "Yeah, man." So I told my son, "I gotta go down the street, do a U-turn, and drop you off at the tire shop. Then come back down the street, do another U-turn, and then go towards where I need to go." He said, "Why don't I just drop you off here, and you run across this 4-lane road, and then go over there to the tire shop?" He's like, "Nah, Dad, I'm not doing that." He's like, "Man, I'm teaching some respect. Like my dad wasn't here to do that for me." My godson said, "Hey, that's what you here for. You supposed to be here to make my life easy." I was crying. He had me rolling, but it was funny. Like that is true. As us as parents, we supposed to make our kids' life a little bit easy. We supposed to teach them life lessons, but make their life a little bit easy from the issues that we had when we were young. They shouldn't be going through. And it was funny how he jabs at his dad a lot, and so the crazy part is it's about two guys that went to high school with us. They were big name rappers, and one died in Chicago, other one died down here in Atlanta. And so my friend was kind of upset about it. He was like, "Man," he's like, "Rara just died, this other guy just died." He's like, "Man, it's getting crazy." He's like, "My godson's like, the ops is having a field day with your boys." And I was like, "Man, this dude is so cold hearted." But it's funny. You got to laugh at it because, this young generation, they don't take nothing serious, man. But I mean, like I told my son, I said, "Man, my little godson, man, he's growing up. He's a good young man. His father's in real estate. And so he actually is a inspector. He does home inspections. So he went and got his license, and now he's fully employed through his dad and other co-workers that work in the agency to inspect homes. And hey, I'm like, dude, that's a good career. Your dad's in the field, your aunt's in the field. You have a lot of family that can work with you and other realtors that need inspectors. That's the biggest thing. I would never buy a house without a home inspection. That's something that I tell my kids. My daughter went through got a home inspected, but she went through a guy that didn't know much, and she still got screwed. And so that's the biggest thing. You gotta vet these people. You gotta get referrals. So she just went with a company she found in like the old yellow pages, but got it online, and you can pay to get your views hit to the top to where you're the first up the line to get picked to be called. You know, so when it comes down to it, man, just like a lot of little stuff like this, we need to start having conversations with our kids. We need to start having conversations with the adults. Honestly speaking, there's some adults that don't know nothing. Like I've literally looked at some people and I'm like, really? Like even my cousins, my younger cousins, they don't have no life insurance. But they didn't grow up around my great grandma. Me, my brothers, my uncle, A couple of my cousins that are a little older than me, all of them have life insurance. She didn't play. She let us know. Like, if you die right now, I can be on this live. Granted, something happened to me, my family be taken care of. How many people can say that? You know, I was just talking to my wife about my friend, and this is bad getting this tragic news like this. So I got a letter in the mail from an insurance company, and I'm assuming that my friends put my address down for a referral for something or whatever, because at the end of the day, these people sent me a letter. Matt, these people sent me a letter about my friend, passing. My friend passed last year. He was 72 years old. Great old guy, man. A lot of wisdom. Me and him sat down and talked about a lot of things. And in the end, I opened up the letter. I'm thinking, because my cousin has the last name as him, it just says the Walker family. So I'm like, okay, what's going on? And lo and behold, looked at it and I was like, man, his wife died too. So not only did he die in August, his wife died after his birthday, which was October. And I'm like, man, I mean, they always say that the true love, that the spouse died from a broken heart, and they typically die months later. And it was just crazy, you know. But going into that though, like, I was talking to my wife and I was telling her, if anything was to happen to me, you need to be prepared. That's why I always told people I have this red folder in my file box with all my tax returns, all my business, social security cards, the boys immunization, whatever. And they got young, they don't get shots now, but as of when they were young, they got the immunization shots. And just in general, man, no, she has to be prepared. You know, if anything happened to me right now, let's say if anything happened to her, I have her information, her insurance. This is something that a process that you have to be ready for. Banking information, PIN numbers. I give my kids my PIN number. My kids know my PIN number. I put my PIN number in that folder. She needs to have access to money, even if she's on the account or not. She needs access to that. Bank statements, they come in emails. I have her hooked up on my email to where she knows it. She don't know about all my bank accounts, granted, but they're in that folder. And she don't even look. She didn't even know I had over $1 million in life insurance because I didn't tell her, because I didn't want her to knock me off. But just saying, just playing. But the thing is, like, having that money for her, it was going to be a secret. I didn't want her to know. I didn't want her to know about all that money that I had set aside for her. Granted that she found out anyway, on the call that I had when I was getting some more insurance, and she found that out, and she was like, "Whoa!" Even with her insurance, I actually just got her some insurance, and I'm paying for it now. Some more insurance. Um, just in general, man. Just a lot of times we don't think about stuff till it's too late. A lot of times we don't have the information. You know how many people have, my friend, his dad died and they had the money coming automatically out of his grandma's account. His grandma, she gets her Social Security and she was paying it through this account with her Social Security check. And the crazy part about it was she passed, and a month later she missed one payment off his father's insurance, and they sent a letter, to the house. They got the letter, pulled up who name was on the policy besides the grandmother, and stuff like that, and they went and got the money. But guess what? This guy had already been buried and dead for, I would say, a year and a half. So the grandma was still paying money on a policy for a year and a half because she was old. That lady was 98 years old. I think almost 100, like 98. Was grandma 98 or she already hit 100? I think she was, yeah, she was 98. My friend grandma, Bud Files, what's going on? My friend grandma was 98 years old. She was still paying life insurance on her son who was already dead. She didn't know. The family didn't know because all they know is when her money hits her account, they go to her account, or she knew all her stuff was getting paid out, or they had took her card. They didn't have access to her account. So I mean, that was the crazy thing. And like they gave her the money for the burial, stuff like that, the policy and everything. But it was crazy. Like that guy had died a year and a half ago, and she was still paying on the policy. You know, she had another policy that lapsed, and when they found out about that policy, all they did was gave her money back. That from the policy that lapsed, and I think what was it? The policy lapsed around the same time he died, so they had to give her the money. I think it was like a month or two after he died, the policy stopped getting paid out because he had passed, and they knew that they was like, man, let's close this account out, and that account was attached to that policy, and that was the account that he was getting his Social Security, I think, out of it. So when they stopped getting his Social Security out of that account, that's how the policy lapsed and all, whole story. And they found out about that like months after, and they was able to get some of the money out of that because the policy lapsed. They're not going to pay you the amount that you had on there because the policy lapsed. It wasn't up to date. So they just give you the money that you put in, which it was a term, so it wasn't much. But granted, a lot of us are not teaching. A lot of us are not giving this information, so we losing out. Like I said, having this stuff readily available for the family, just in case something happens, a lot of us do not keep this information that helps us. It harms us when we don't have this information. It harms us. You know, Teaching my kids to be ready about stuff like this, giving them the knowledge about money. You know how hard it is telling a kid to break society norms. I'm trying to teach my kids right now to have a business and develop their mindset like I did. When I was younger, I did a lot of playing around when I was pretty much 15, right? Around their age, about to be now about 15 to 20, 21. 15 to 21, I did a lot. I did a lot. I did a lot. But by the time I got at least by 21, I was dealing with so many grown men around me. I literally was working at a job that me, my brother, and two of my friends, we were like the only. I think it was like five of us there, but we was the only five that were, pretty much just like the youngest that worked there, and everybody else. I think the and we was about 17, 18 years old. The people that worked there, the youngest that was like 28, 29, we moved furniture. So I was around so many older men that gave me so much knowledge. I kind of grew before my time, but I was always around older people. My uncles, their friends, a lot of older people I sat down and talked with. I like talking with older people. My favorite person in the world was my granny. I watched my granny all through high school. When I was a kid, I would go cook for her. Like, she basically honed my skills. Like, I could cook, but she honed my skills to be better. And that was when I was what, third grade? My grandma was teaching us how to cook when we was like first, second grade. She had a job, she'd get home late, showed us how to boil noodles, hot dogs. That's not cooking. But, eventually got up to cooking oatmeal, pancakes, all this stuff using the stove, cooking things from scratch. Anybody can warm up vegetables. Shout out to Cat Williams, the late great Wanda, when she was saying she makes some good broccoli and corn. He was like, anybody can boil vegetables. It was so funny. Baked chicken, same thing. You can mess up some baked chicken, but then you can't really mess up baked chicken. Baked chicken is just sitting in some water, season it up. If you want to put a little sauce or something on it, it the max thing is cooking it for the length so it won't become out raw. So baked chicken, fried chicken, it's not really that like cooking meat. If you cook it at the proper temperature and you cook it for the duration so it'll be cooked, it's not that hard to cook meat. Now, the taste, that's where it's different. Seasoning, sauces, that's when you have a different flavor. That's when people say you can cook. Potato salad, same thing with that. Anybody can boil the eggs, boil the potatoes, whether you're mustard, whether you're more mayo, um, pimentos, when you start getting fancy using relish, using different type of things in your potato salad, or you start to get real skill on that side and using grapes and nuts. I've had the grapes and nut potato salad. It's okay. But I went to a caterer. The guy, when I ate the first time, I ate it from a caterer and it was pretty decent. I wouldn't say I eat it all the time, but because I'm used to down south potato salad with eggs and stuff like that. There's potato salad that's not made with eggs. There's potato salad that has carrots and stuff in it. So it's all to your liking. But just homing in on those cooking skills. I had to teach my boys. I'm teaching them very slow because them being in the kitchen, like one of my sons, he eats a lot. So for him to learn how to cook, he's learning. He bakes and stuff like that, and he cooks a little here and there. I make him cook hamburgers and stuff, but him knowing to cook full out meals, like he'll go crazy. Like honestly, my cousin, when she was about 10 years old, she was cooking Thanksgiving dinner for my aunt. She'll be at work, she get off from work, Thanksgiving dinner already cooked. 10, 11 years old, cooking the whole Thanksgiving dinner. So in our house, we learned how to cook because if we didn't, and the parents working, man, noodles and hot dogs got old real quick. And the biggest thing with us when we were younger, like when I was in second, third grade, I got burnt out on peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. So it's like giving your kids the knowledge to learn how to do something, hone their skills. For all I know, my son might end up being a culinary chef. He likes it so much. My other son, he likes labor work, man, because he know the money's come fast. For all I know, this guy might own a construction business. Putting them in front of these things can open their interest. Showing them the money that's in this profession. My biggest thing is trades. I watch a podcast, Grits and Eggs, and they talk about tradesmen. Like there's not a lot of tradesmen out here. You know how many just overall just fields that are like just not available. You literally have plumbers, you literally have electricians, HVACs, carpenters, anywhere from construction to doing asphalt, concrete, drywall, you know, anything, just glass make. You know how garage door openers, landscapers, all these things you don't even have to get a college degree for. Electrician, engineer, yes, but going into the field of electrician, it's easy to push into the engineering field, real easy. Don't even need a degree. You know how many people get into IT off of coding, taking simple coding classes, being able to take the test and become C plus, A plus certified. You're not mainly making a lot of money, but C plus, Python, all these different trades. People making tons of money. You know how many guys get into IT by just taking some little small online course or finding a course online for free that you can do, that you can learn? Don't you know that MIT, this is a fact, MIT gives their program online for free. You do it at your own pace, but because you didn't go to MIT and pay all the big money, they will give you a certificate of completion. A certificate of completion, not a degree, not a certificate that you know you completed a not training, but I'm having a brain freeze right now. But the point of it is, you give a certificate of completion, and you can take that certificate of completion and show most jobs, and they will put you in the field to see what you know how to do. They will give you various of tests. They will put you in environments, and if you can access things and do things, you might get hired. So this is the thing. A lot of people, man, we got to start putting our feet to the ground, teaching our kids more. I mean, we got to learn more. A lot of us, man, we're sitting here getting by. You know, I was just talking to a coworker the other day, and basically we was having a talk that, when it comes down to it, some jobs are dead end. I was just looking at a YouTuber. They were saying that you should be getting a job every 3 to 5 years to keep up with inflation. The days of having seniority on the job have fallen off. There are some, I literally talked to people who've got a 15-cent raise. And due to the economy, 15 cents an hour. Let's go with it. Um, Real quick. Boom. So I did 15 cents times 40 hours. That's only $6. $6 a pay period. If you get paid weekly, times 4, that's only $24. Okay. And 24 going into 12. Let's see, 24 going into 12. There's sets of 4, sets of 3, so there's 300. There's 300, and you take away 12. That is 280, 288. Yep, 288. $288 for a 15-cent raise a year. And guess what? You got to tax that. So taxing it 30%, whatever. Like, dude, that 15-cent raise, if anything, you made 180. You literally made 180. That's it. So what else to follow? What really else to follow? At the end of the day, man, we got to do better for ourselves. We got to get some understanding in our lives. We got to do the right thing for us. We got to get some things squared away. I'm going to be back with another one. I'll probably come back more next month, and then might be on a little vacation, but we got to do better. With that being said, you know what I say when I always get off of here? We here, we here, we here, we gone. Peace.